A Gentle Manifesto. When I read the many and growing numbers of essays exampled by the argument in an essay from the Toronto Star a couple of years ago, "Don't fix the economy, change it," I come away with the sense that something rather serious is missing from the formulations. As a bit of an amateur logician, I've come to realize that there is an implied premise in all of these arguments. It is, for the salutary changes posited to take place, the reins of economic power would have to be pried from the cold, dead, and still grasping fingers of those presently in charge. They will give them up in no other way. They will make no changes of any consequences that would weaken their hold on power and on our own wealth without the direct and credible threat of force sufficient to deliver on the threat. As Frederick Douglass said more than 150 years ago, so simply, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never will, and it never has. I've argued for years in my writings that one basic way to understand economics is to look for the patterns and methods of the protecting and unprotecting of wealth. Wealth broadly defined as the accumulation of raw material, even as in the most simple storing of body fat, and products of the imagination made manifest. Among us humans, the normal distribution of acquisitiveness amplified by our large populations result in small but significant numbers of people who, in multifarious reasons, need to accumulate surplus over their immediate needs. Some are driven to do this to great excess. This creates a real and immediate need for others to collect surplus so to better protect themselves from those who are driven more by pathology than reality. And so the race is on. We spend about half our time protecting our own and about half the time figuring out ways of unprotecting the wealth of the other fellow. We protect with weapons, locks, and laws, and we unprotect with weapons, lock picks, and laws. Obviously, those who make the weapons and the laws are in the best place to unprotect the wealth of others. And so, again, the race is on. Our economic systems become religions in the service of the protecting and unprotecting of wealth. Capitalism is hated rationally by those whose wealth is unprotected by it, and loved irrationally by those for whom its design allow them to unprotect the wealth of others. Socialism, meaning a socially responsible pattern of human relations, would limit the ability of capitalists to unprotect the wealth of the great many. But ultimately, these economic designs are adaptations responding to technology, power, numbers, and opportunity. They have never been determined by reason or by understanding of long-term sustaining. The meaning of this reality is that in the long history of natural economics before humans, economic adaptation was in the service of ecosystem integration and stability by virtue of the beneficence and violence of the evolutionary process. Human economics are also adaptive, but have disconnected from environmental realities in such a way that not only do they ignore the value of the lives of humans, they ignore the value of life on Earth altogether. And in an even more terrible irony, the greater the disconnection from reality, the greater the power to do harm in reality. A man living in a cave with only stone tools saw clearly his dependence on the world around him and was careful not to do it harm. And yet he had no real power to damage it. The man in the top floor corner office with billions of joules of power at his fingertips believes in his own ascendancy and the world not at all, yet can in a stroke bring down a species, 100 species, an ecosystem. The meanings here are disturbing, the actions called for difficult and dangerous. I tire of the mealy-mouthed lies from the political heights. I tire of the silly affectations of the simply angry. Angry that they have been stolen from, but who would, in a heartbeat, steal from others. A critical mass of people must come to understand and act with some reasonable and general comprehension of our situation, more the American Revolution than the French Revolution. The great frustration will come of a sudden and sweep unevenly through populations, as it always has. This will happen and is being prepared for by those who will want only to crush it, but it will not come easily. There is so much to lose. Almost everything that most people believe will be challenged and changed. Some will be economically and emotionally crushed, and some will die. It would be best for the world if our capacity to imagine, our consciousness order powers, could be organized in such a way that we begin to reflect on and anticipate the adaptive changes that will reconnect us to the environmental reality we have for so long ignored. But the cost will be dear. First must come the ideas from as many sources as possible, as loud as possible, as constant as possible, and then the forming of action. There is a promised land, not promised by any God, but promised by a new, evolutionarily new, incredibly powerful adaptation, what I call a consciousness system of order. It's a thing that I explain more fully in other essays. In essence, it is that we can imagine and then tangibly create that imagining, an entirely new way of being in the universe. The human species is its present repository. Let loose on the world and unguided, this adaptation has been running its course. Since the limit of imagining is hugely wider and faster than other forms of change, this adaptation has disconnected humanity from reality as one of its many possibilities of expression. But it is within the possibilities of the consciousness order to reconnect to reality in new and as yet unimagined ways. We are entering the desert, and it is uncertain in what form we will emerge. We can continue to allow the most insane and afflicted among us to determine our fate and future, or we can imagine another way and make it happen.